Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today is Tuesday and so it is patch day. Today is mostly a rather small patch, but this is the epilogue to the Living World Season 1 stuff we saw. It doesn't actually come with its own achievement category, but there is some stuff to talk about, and particularly beyond the story stuff that was added, there's quite a lot going on the side, so I'd like to talk about updates that have gone into the game. Particularly things are moving on with their big PvP changes, stuff is going to be happening in World vs. World, and there's some Black Line stuff to go over as well. So quite a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it, I suppose, with the story stuff first of all. To establish what happened last patch, in case you missed it, was, well, okay, let's start 2 patches ago. 2 patches ago, Lion's Arch was attacked by Scarlet and her forces, and most of the event was about evacuating people from Lion's Arch. Last patch was then all about taking Lion's Arch back for ourselves, because Scarlet's miasma had blown out to sea, and so we all push in, eventually killing her. That was the conclusion of all of Season 1 Living World, but it ended quite suddenly. It had like a solo instance you would complete, and there was quite a lot of story and cutscene going on, but basically Scarlet would die. There was a little bit of a wrap up with the characters who were in quite a dire situation, and then we got a cutscene showing us the big reveal of the season, Mordramoth Underground. And then that was it. There was very little going on in terms of like a conclusion. You could then walk around and try and find all of the NPCs scattered about the world and speak to them, and they'd say, oh, you killed Scarlet, well done. But there was like no big celebration. There was no, what do the heroes think about everything that's happened? What are the current theories? There was none of that. So that's what this patch is. I believe it wasn't originally sort of a big planned thing, but I guess it became quite apparent to the devs that it was needed. And this is why probably it's sort of a Living World patch, but also it has no achievements associated with it. And certainly no combat, but I do think what it adds to the game is quite valuable. When you log in, you're supposed to get an opening cutscene, which I have not seen. It did not trigger for me. I'm curious whether you guys got the cutscene. I think the cutscene is supposed to show us, though, what's happening in Lion's Arch right now. See, Lion's Arch has now become something of a regular zone. Last patch we were seeing it was still full of events and Scarlet alliances. They've now all been shifted out because we and the Lion Guard did our job, killed everyone, and so now you can fully explore Lion's Arch in its wrecked, devastated state. This means that all the waypoints that were previously contested, now you can use once again. I was a little bit curious about that, because it's like, why still have them in the game if they're just going to be forever contested? But now, at last, after a month of fighting through Lion's Arch, we have decontested those waypoints, and you can sort of just wander around and see the aftermath. A fair few things have changed, mostly caused by the fact the Breachmaker has fallen out of the sky and destroyed most of the city, which is curious because I will now read to you guys from the wiki the official statement the devs have about what this patch includes. All right, listen to this. They say, Battle for Lion's Arch Aftermath. Word of Scarlet's demise has spread like wildfire throughout the wards of the city. With renewed vigour, the heroes of Lion's Arch, the Lion Guard, and Order forces have driven out the remainder of Scarlet's armies, their morale and ranks shattered. Cheers and celebrations erupted at the refugee camps and nigh across all of Tyria. All the while, the Breachmaker, the enormous ship looming over South Sun Harbour, continues to drill uncontrollably. As the city fires wane and smoulder, the question that now arises is what will become of the once great city of Lion's Arch. So that's the description of the patch, and it explicitly says there, oh, the Breachmaker's still going and drilling. You go there in-game, though, and the thing is clearly not going and drilling, and it's been blown up, and I wonder whether it's because I missed this cutscene and I can't find it anywhere that I didn't see this thing fall out of the sky. But you go there now, and it's a little bit like Ore. It's kind of weird. Ore has got all of these giant arches and mysterious things. They set up in the lore that for Ore, when it was at its height, the city and the whole nation, I suppose, was filled with these giant rings that would like stand upright. And no historian can really figure out why they used to exist in Ore. And so this is why when you're walking around in Ore now, you can see all of these arcs and archways that are either still standing to a degree, or most of them have fallen on their side. There's quite a few areas, if you think about out near the waters of Ore. Like in the very west of Malkor's Leap, there's that whole area with a big circular thing on the floor. These are all like giant rings that were supposed to be a big part of what Ore's like, and that defines a lot of the environments there. Well, Lion's Arch now feels a little bit like that, because the Breachmaker was this giant circular airship, and now all of these destroyed pieces of it are littering the map. You kind of get that bit of a feeling as well. I don't think that open up any extra pathways to new areas. I haven't explored Lion's Arch too much, especially outside of the footage that you guys can see in the background there, but they have changed some of the geography, and they do make it kind of ominous while you're walking around there. The other big change, I suppose, is Visually, now that the attack is gone, like, it's coloured regularly on the world map now. It's not some bright red colour encouraging people to go there. The miasma is pretty much all gone. You can still see ash in the sky, and it's got kind of a weird, sad lighting. But the map, for most parts, is now safe. There's no enemies there, just like before all of this happened, except it's just destroyed, and there are no services there, and very few NPCs. So let's talk about the NPCs, who's actually there. First of all, in place of the Breachmaker, there's now an airship in the sky. Whose airship is this, I wonder? My first thought was, oh, this is obviously Ellen Keel. Ellen Keel's taking her airship again. I loved seeing the airship in a previous patch. I was like, yeah, look, so she's obviously flying above Lion's Arch, monitoring how things are going. However, the airship you can see in the sky is not, as far as I can see, is not an Aetherblade airship, which is what Ellen Keel has. It's actually a Pact airship. So that's really curious to me, and I'm probably, it's definitely not in the footage for this video, and I might not do a video about it, but I'm definitely going to break out of Lion's Arch and see whether I can somehow void jump on top of that thing. Really curious. There's a Pact airship floating in the sky. Maybe it is supposed to be Ellen Keel's and the devs like dropped the ball, but let's assume not, and that this is something new and kind of interesting. So that's going on in the sky now. And largely all around the map, you'll now find devoid of NPCs, except in a few areas. And when you do speak to those NPCs, you find out the citizens that have gone back to Lion's Arch, the Lion Guard don't really want there. You know, it's a complete destroyed city. It's a wasteland. It's very much like when a natural disaster happens in real life. You know, a city's destroyed. It's not habitable. The government tries to keep people away so that, you know, they can clean stuff up and eventually maybe people can go back to live there many years down the line. It's sort of the same in Gw2. You've got some refugees there and the Lion Guard are saying, no, leave. Look, it's not safe here. There's nothing for you. Please go find somewhere safe for yourself to stay elsewhere. But these refugees are like burying in the rubble, looking for lost loved ones or what other business they feel like they have. And I thought that was really cool. Like, you can speak to these people and they're like, oh, I'm not leaving until I find my daughter and I bury her. You know, that's pretty cool. And so you can't see many refugees. This is the main reason why I feel like they're like excuse, if you will, for why there aren't many NPCs around, and this is largely what they're doing. There are, as I say, no services. One kind of interesting place where there are NPCs who are supposed to be there, so it would seem, aside from Lion Guard, is at the second gate plaza. So Lion's Arch had one gate hub where we always used, right, which we knew there was a gate to Holbrack, there was a gate to Ratasum, and so on, right? Across from that, on the other side of the lion statue, though, there were always more gates that were being worked on by a crew of Asura, and you could speak to one and he had these snarky comments about how he was under NDA, but he was going to spoil all the secrets anyway, and it was always quite a funny little area. But this originally at launch seemed to most players to be ArenaNet saying, okay, here's your regular gate hub, and then as we add expansions and new stuff, this second gate hub will become a place that you end up going to, right? Well, now, the original gate hub has been completely destroyed. There are no gates there whatsoever. But the second hub, those Asura have returned to Lion's Arch, and they're now working on those gates again. How curious is that? So it's not even suggesting, if they were, say, at the other gate hub, you know, this would be a big suggestion from the dev saying, right, Lion's Arch may eventually become an area where all the services come back to, you know, it will be the interlocking place between all cities. But no, they haven't done that. These Asura are working on these same mysterious gates. So I was a little bit sad when I heard Lion's Arch was going to get destroyed, because this was always one of the cool things for me to speculate about. You know, you go there and you get that twang of excitement. You're thinking, oh, there's going to be an expansion at some point and we'll have loads of players around here. I wonder what they're going to do with these gates. And then you hear Lion's Arch is going to get destroyed, and you're like, all right, well, I guess that didn't mean anything. But now they're back, and that same thing is there. They're working again. And you can't speak to them anymore. That guy that was once quite gobby and saying, oh, NDA stuff, is just completely silent. And it's just the Asura are hammering away. So what are they going to do there now? Is this going to be new Asura gates to new areas, or are they just going to repurpose these gates to do what the original gates did that have now been destroyed? Which would be pretty lame, to be honest. But that was really cool for me to see, and those guys are there. The rest of the map really only has Lion Guard that I found. As I said, I didn't explore it 100%. Some of the more interesting Lion Guard, like I went to the bank, and during the attack, obviously the bank has been cracked open, and they put all that gold on the inside, which is a really nice touch. And I went to the bank thinking, oh, I hope that gold's now gone, because obviously it would have been looted or it would have been moved by now. But the gold's still there, which disappointed me slightly. But as you walk close, the Lion Guard guarding the bank kick you away, as if to say, no, you're not allowed anywhere near this gold. And that was pretty cool to see it too. That'll be in the footage at some point on the video behind. That's basically what's going on with Lion's Arch. The patch notes specifically mention 3 interactable objects that have been added there. These are walls that are supposed to be in commemoration of, you know, the destruction of Lion's Arch. One wall is to honor the people who brought the attack to the end, who brought Scarlet to justice. And it's a little bit... there's a word for it. I can't really remember, but there's one of them is really just about you. It's a way of sort of patting yourself on the back, which I really don't understand too much, but you can go to it and it says, oh, this is to commemorate the deeds of the great heroes who slayed Scarlet, and then it's got your name written there, and I suppose this makes people feel like they're the center of the story, and that's wonderful. I didn't care about that one. There's another one that talks about many of the NPCs who are now dead, like confirmed dead, and we're not going to see them again. They don't give you too many names, but you absolutely can read the names on this wall. Go to the wiki, type the names in, and you'll see these were old NPCs in Lion's Arch who are now confirmed to be dead. I assume that some of these NPCs, like, none of them really sparked or jumped off the page to me as someone interesting, but I guess that they have probably interesting dialogue, idle dialogue that isn't recorded, say, on the wiki. Like, maybe one of them is one of the funny Sylvari that was around, but one of the NPCs confirmed dead was the guy in swimming trunks at the top of the diving goggles thing. One of them confirmed dead was the Asura who ran Tyria's first and only tropical bar, and there's a few others too, which I guess is sort of sad to see. The third interactable wall is about missing people who aren't confirmed dead but are missing, and again, it's a bunch of characters that you can actually go on the wiki and you'll see that they do exist in the game, or did at one point. I'm curious about that last one. I think it'd be really cool, even though there's no meta achievement or anything that would formally reward you for doing this. It'd be really cool if you could walk around Lion's Arch and actually find these guys hidden somewhere, because it is a big city, and what destroyed or not, I've always liked the idea of encouraging people to go out and explore this stuff, and now that it basically feels not like a totally new map, but a pretty new map, that would be some cool incentive for people to go and explore around. Like, I went to check out the Order of Whispers area, and I was compelled for a second or two maybe to go down that big pipe into the really deep area with all the broken ships, just in case maybe you could find an NPC there somehow, but that's like a crazy idea, and I never ended up doing it. But that's basically what's going on with Lion's Arch. Outside of Lion's Arch, not too much else has changed. I did have a look at the refugee camp, as you will see. I spoke to the woman who did the war report of the Lion Guard while the attack was going on. She just says, oh, do you have any theories about Scarlet? And you say, no, I don't really have time for it. Over at the Vigil Keep, Evan Nashblade's dialogue hasn't changed at all. Kanak's dialogue, as far as I can see, hasn't changed since the last patch either. Very little has really been altered. However, when you do log into the game, you'll get a mail from Marjorie Delacroix asking you to come join them for like a private little shindig, happy celebration thing at the Dead End Bar to, you know, commemorate the defeat of Scarlet. And you can trundle off and see some pretty interesting scenes there. It goes on a lot longer than I thought it was going to. It's pretty cheesy at times. You can choose to be cheesy. I like said, ooh, how about that kiss? And you can wink at them if you like. But I'll go over the most important things that really struck out to me about what we saw with the story there. First of all, just to set the scene, they're in the Dead End Bar. You know, you've got these great heroes of the story that really should be out on the streets being paraded around, and they choose to go to this grotty little bar with all of this dank around to celebrate, just, you know, as friends together, which is actually kind of cool. You got like Rox the Char in the human city and a human pub sort of hidden away in the corner a little bit. You know, you can see little things that actually are really nice touches. Anyway, they're just hanging out and having a drink and talking to one another. You can engage in a little bit of conversation. Some lines, okay? Number one, they kind of put the explanation of what everything happens into your hands as the player. So all of the characters like, what do you mean, Elder Dragon? And you say, ah, well, look, here is the theory, blah, blah, blah. Well, these are ley lines. And one of the lines, which I thought was pretty cool in the first place, but one of the things that they describe is that ley lines are like currents in an ocean of magic, which actually visually isn't how I've been picturing them before, and that sort of opens another unique perspective. You know, they've talked a lot about how they're like, you know, air currents that go through the sky or currents that go through the water. I just always thought that they were like sealed away, confined channels that went under the ground, but I guess they are in just a giant pool of magic, which is really curious to think of. Sort of like, the molten core of Tyria isn't really fire, it's magic instead, or somewhere within there's a load of magic. Weird to visualize, but through this you explain to everyone, hey, look, the Elder Dragons feed on this magic, and Scarlet was trying to disturb them in some way, trying to wake them up. And then the characters say it sort of skirts around this issue where we, the players, know this is Mordramoth, but the characters in the universe don't know that it's Mordramoth because they have no real basis for comparison here. Like, Scarlet could have said, I'm waking up my master Mordramoth, but no, she didn't, so we have no way. We don't even know how they're going to find out the name. You might be curious, how did any of the names of the Elder Dragons come about? A lot of it came from the tomes of the dwarves. Well, Mordramoth, there is like none of that, so I wonder if we get a bit of story there about how we finally get his name. And so the characters are saying, oh, Elder Dragons, okay, which one could it be? And they're just listing the ones that they know about, Primordus and Kralkator Torek and Jormag. I mean, even the Deep Sea Dragon they're not too aware of, or nobody really talks about. It seems like only the Inquest and a very few select even know of that guy. So that was kind of an interesting perspective to have there, and I wonder how they'll eventually lead on to the revelation that it is Morgemoth and something to do with the Maguma jungle. And perhaps there is a hint in this story that suggests that. See, as the conversations are going along, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, I might go back, but Marjorie's sister comes in. Now, this is a character we'd heard about a while ago. We got a fair bit about Casmir's family recently, so try not to confuse the two, but Marjorie's sister comes in. She's named Belinda, and she's a member of the Seraph, which is kind of cool, because Marjorie, before she quit because of just their incompetence and corruptness, she was a member of the Ministry Guard, and you know, these are sort of two opposing factions, but these two sisters both joined one and then the other. Belinda comes in and just basically says, oh, I'm happy for you being with Casmir in a roundabout way. But one thing she specifically says towards the end of her visit is that she's just coming to see Marjorie because she's going out on a mission to the Brisban wildlands. Brisban is a huge area that we should be paying attention to right now, because Brisban has 2 different portals leading out of it as a map. Out of all maps in Guild Wars 2, this is the one with the biggest hints that expansion content, new maps will be tied to it, because it has 2 actual portals linking out of it. And now we've got a story, obviously, about an Elder Dragon somewhere in the Maguma jungle, and we've got a story of Marjorie's sister going out there. My prediction, therefore, for some of the future patches, Belinda's going to run into some trouble. Right now, the story is that bandits are interfering with supplies to the city and they're headquartered out there, which does fit. There are bandit headquarters out there. It's like Bandit City if you think about some of the meta events going on there, or some of the hearts that you have to do. It does all work, and I think that she's gonna either find something mysterious tied to Morgemoth, maybe she'll just find all the bandits dead already because they've been attacked by husks or something, which are probably minions of Morgemoth, and then it will spiral out of control from there. Maybe it's going to be a bit of a rescue mission to go and find Belinda, and we'll push forward into some new maps, maybe quite early in Season 2, which would be really cool. So that, to me, was probably the biggest hint of things to come. There are a few other things, like Rox is basically saying, oh, I'm hiding from Ritlock. There are a lot of mentions to the members of Destiny's Edge. It's still in this weird limbo-ish area where we don't know what the devs want to do with Destiny's Edge compared to this new Destiny's Edge, I suppose. But they are like big influences on all the characters. Marjorie talks about how she's had a meeting with Logan. Rox talks about how she's hiding from Ritlock, basically. And Ritlock is even made out to be a bit of a villain, you know, just a character within his own rights, not some goody two-shoes hero part of a band that's killing Elder Dragons. Ritlock is like, Rox makes it sound like he could like kill her, that he's well within her rights to just kill her for disobeying an order, which is really cool. So you get these weird perspectives of the other characters. Zodger is seen as this over-controlling woman who only cares about herself, and she's, you know, had Timey going off doing extra maths, which actually to me doesn't sound like a punishment for Azura, but there you go. You know, all of the members of Destiny's Edge are still lingering around. They are relevant to the story, and I quite like that, and I want to see where the devs go. You know, I do feel like one of the bigger reasons they don't have these characters in the story is because of their voice actors. You know, Zodger is a really good example. I've mentioned this a couple of times. The fact that she is voiced by Felicia Day, and ArenaNet might not always have access to Felicia Day, could be why we don't see too much Zodger in the story. But they are being referenced a lot, and it's bubbling there. It's under the surface. What else really happened? Not too much. I mean, there were just nice little things to see. I didn't realize how much I appreciated it and how much I enjoyed him. Bram's voice actor was pretty cool here. Like, he had a scene where Timey's just going on about all this nonsense that she's doing with her golem, and Bram is just saying, I'm sure a lot of people will have liked that. I thought he was pretty cool, and their interaction's quite nice. They set up a lot of parallels between those two characters. Bram's now got his broken leg, and so when he's walking around in the bar, he's like crippled and he's barely moving. And Timey comes into the area. She gets off of her golem Scruffy at the door, and then she cripples her way in. And they talk about how they're similar because they would both rather build stuff than talk about building stuff. Once everything's over, the game just gives you a short cutscene where camera pans out of the dead-end bar and then scrolls to the sky, and it says, "To be continued." I remember back during Guild Wars 1, there were these to be continued cutscenes that were always happening during the Winds of Change stuff, and it reminded me of that so much, because aside from the to be continued, which didn't mean much anyway, it was pretty much a pointless cutscene. However, just before you have time to feel sour about that. The game just gives you a bunch of champion bags, and that's pretty much the conclusion of Season 1. All of the epilogue's done, and that's the story set up for Season 2 in a nutshell. Aside from that, this patch brought, as I say, mostly this patch, rather than being about story, brought some quality of life to different areas of the game. This is not all of it, this is just the stuff significant to me. They specifically mentioned on the release notes that a vendor, they've mentioned this before, but it's now there in the release notes, a merchant will be coming to Tyria who will buy your blade shards from you. There was blade shard spam all over the place in the most recent patches. I'm sure you guys have got loads. I think I almost have a full tab myself filled with the damn things. There is a vendor coming, so hold on to them, don't just get rid of them, and you should be able to get something worthwhile. sPvP, this is one of the big things that came with this patch. They promised a lot of changes to sPvP, you know, a long time goal, how they're going to revamp the rewards, and they have been keeping to their promises. This patch has removed the ability to gain glory. Glory is like gone now. You still have glory and you can spend it, but you can't earn glory anymore. So that's your lot. If you hadn't already used up, say, your boosters, they are now useless. You should listen to the warnings people were giving you. And in addition to this, as promised, all the chests that are associated with PvP are basically gone. It used to be you'd open a chest and you'd get this random chance to get loot, and it was very unrewarding and very boring. Now that stuff has all been removed, so if you are saving, say, some of your achievement chests, you can now open those, and now you instead get a small, medium, or large chest as you rank up. Speaking of ranking up, they've increased the rank points again too. I don't know by how much, I haven't gone in there to play. They've been increasing rank points a lot lately, which I'm quite happy about, but it's gone up again. So if you feel like you're ranking too slowly in PvP, maybe again another reason to return. World versus World, let's talk about that. 28th, the tournament begins. Setup is now there for the tournament. There is no Living World category for this patch, but you will see that the new tournament achievements have been added there. They have stated every single one of these achievements will give you a chest that has a chance to drop ascended materials and should feel somewhat rewarding. And in preparation for this, free transfers to any server you like are now available. So you can go to any server. Obviously, if it's full, all the gold tier servers are already full for NA, but if it's not full, you can transfer for free. Do be warned though, I just jumped in and to test whether it was free or not, transferred back to my home server of Emery Bay, which probably isn't going to do very well in World vs World season at all here, and I'm now on a 6-day cooldown before I can transfer again, so there'll probably be even less opportunity to get into, say, one of the gold servers or any good silver servers at that point. So anyway, it's free. If you want to transfer for whatever reason, you can do that right now. They also made a couple of small, they made loads of, I shouldn't say a couple, they made loads of small changes to World vs World. Little bits of refinement, text on dynamic events, oddities about how if you're attacking one of the inner gates on one of the keeps in the Eternal Battleground, it wouldn't put the X up. You know, stuff like this has been refined and fixed. Bigger things to me though, the Gift of Battle is now sold by a specific merchant, and you have to be rank 14. I find it curious that they made this change. Like, why is this high on the priority list? Maybe it wasn't a difficult thing to implement, but I guess it's because since you now have achievement point rewards that give you a bunch of badges of honor, it meant you could get the Gift of Battle without ever World versus Worlding, and that was against the idea of getting a legendary weapon. You had to try all the different types of content, except constructed PvP for whatever reason. So I think that might be why they changed that. Speaking of specific vendors, they've also added a specific one that will tell you how your home server is doing during matchups like they talked about previously, and the buffs that you get from World vs World. This is actually a weird feature I wasn't too familiar with, but if you do well in World vs World, you do get bonuses to vitality and chance to gather extra stuff and healing power, you know, actual useful things to an extent for combat. You get that, but they disabled that actually helping you in PvE a while ago. I don't know when. Well, that has now been re-enabled for PvE. So if your world is doing good in World vs World, you are also getting more benefits in PvE once again. If you guessed or are in an overflow, I think it used to break and it wouldn't work anymore. Well, now it will still work and it will still be based on your home world. So I might get really bad benefits because I'm an Emery Bay player. I could then think, oh, it's okay, I'll just guess to Blackgate and everything will be easier, which it wouldn't be in the first place. But even that logic doesn't work because it will just stick with my Emery Bay bonuses, if that makes sense to you guys. Blackline stuff, just to finish the video off, there are new hairstyles in the Total Makeover kit. I did look, Dolphy put up a thing, I'll have a link in the description if you want to have a look, at what they look like. I wasn't really impressed by any of them. I might change my Osiris hair just to look a little bit more unique, but they don't look that great. Collection expanders, these were the consumable that they released in the Blackline store recently that allows you to go from, say, 250 to 500 to 750 and so on. That had a cap before, I believe at 1,000. That is now at a cap of 1,500. I guess they're making good money off of that. So you can buy more of those if you want. And every stack that you have in your bank will go all the way up to 1,500, which actually does sound pretty cool. Here's a crazy thing that they changed that I'll end the video on. They released set 3 of minis. I thought that the sets were going to be like a yearly thing. And I thought that set 2 came out at the Queen's Jubilee, which was like 1 year after Guild Wars 2. But they've just released set 3 randomly already. I mean, what's up with that? Is that again like a bit that we want more money in the gem store kind of thing? Seems weird. Maybe it's not a big deal. The new minis, therefore, so if you don't have your set 2 stuff complete, do be thinking about that because that will get removed. But for set 3, the exotics, I thought I'd gather a list for you guys, is King Adalburn, a Lagos, a Moss Heart, and a Flame Effigy. I obviously don't have footage of these. They'll be very expensive for a very long time. One I found really curious, in Guild Wars Factions while I was Let's Playing it, I had a pet that I let my subscribers name. The name of that pet was Suru, and it was a white crane, because I believe Suru is the Japanese name for crane, and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a new mini in the game called Suru Whitewing, and I was like, what is this? And it looked like some kind of white bird. I bought one, and it's actually a Tengu. Now, the reason why I mention this isn't because of my old LP, it's because Suru Whitewing isn't an NPC that exists in Guild Wars 2 right now. Like, if you try and wiki him, he's not anywhere. So who is Suru Whitewing? Is this a new character, a hint at a character maybe we'll be seeing in Season 2 of Living World? And why, I wonder, would we be seeing Tengu in Season 2 of Living World? Very curious. Anyway, so I've now got that mini, and I guess I'll use it for a little while. But that's it, guys. That is the patch for today, the epilogue. As I said, quite a lot to talk about. Let me know what you thought about it. As I say, I do think it was worthwhile, and I'm glad that they added some story onto what is otherwise, you know, mechanical changes for World vs. World and sPvP largely. It's not the kind of thing that you'll be grinding out a meta for the next 2 weeks. Not that many metas really last that long anyway. But I do think it offered some good conclusions and nice hints as well at where the story could be going for the future. Next patch will be the big feature patch, though I don't believe that's in 2 weeks. I think it's the 2 weeks after that. I believe they made an announcement. But I will keep you guys up to date. That one's going to be the huge one with loads of gameplay features. The devs announced that they're going to have 2 different Ready Up live streams instead of just 1, just because they have that much to talk about. So, as I say, I will keep you guys in the loop. Big things coming for gameplay in the game rather than the living story for a little while. And we'll see it as it unfolds. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will see you next time.